Let's move on now to another wiring method, which looks very similar to armor cable, Article 330 metal clad cable. Now, there are two different types of metal clad cables today. I'm going to call one a traditional type, so please listen to me when I'm talking about MC cable. As this entire program always goes, when I use the word MC cable, you got to be careful. I'm talking traditional MC cable. If I want to talk about a different type of MC cable, I'm going to say MC cable of the all-purpose type. And I think the MC cable, the all-purpose type, is trademarked by Southwire.
I think so.
So let's go to this graphic and let's talk about it. Then we talk about the drama there. Okay, traditional MC cable is required to have an insulated equipment grounding conductor in the wire method, or at least an equipment grounding conductor in the wire method, and it does not have a bonding strip, which means the outer sheath of traditional MC cable is not an equipment grounding conductor, so therefore the wire method must have an equipment grounding conductor. A newer type of MC cable is what is called MC all-purpose cable by Southwire, where if this was a 12-gauge wire, this contains a 10-gauge aluminum bonding strip. And I heard somebody tell me it's like an armor cable on steroids. And that 10-gauge aluminum bonding strip serves the same purpose as it did in armor cable. Now, why they go 10-gauge? I'm not sure exactly why 10-gauge. Maybe because that's what the study needed to do in order to try to make this wiring method to be identified as an equipment grounding conductor. Now, this is identified as an equipment grounding conductor, 250.11810, paren, I think it's 2, and Ryan will check that out for me, that you can have MC cable serve as an equipment grounding conductor, and it will comply with 250.11810, probably either A, I'm sorry, not 2, it's B. It's either A or B. B, that's what I thought, B. All right, here we go. So now, those are the two wire methods. It's a factory assembled just like armor cable, except it's MC cable. Where can you use MC cable? All right. Branch circuits, feeders, and services. All right. Oh, armor cable cannot be used for services. MC cable can be power, lighting, control, and signaling. Okay. Oh, this is important. A lot of times you want to get a class 1 circuit and you want to get some wiring from one point to the other, and you can use MC cable small control conductors, fire alarm circuits, non-power limited fire alarm circuit cables come in MC cable with like an 18-gauge copper conductor. So that's an MC cable. So it's not only power, but it also is going to be some control. Indoors and outdoors. Okay. Outdoors, we got to watch for that. Ryan, does it say indoors and outdoors where identified suitable for the application, or does it just say indoors and outdoors, use is permitted?
Indoors or outdoors.
Okay. Well, it'll pick up where you can't use it outdoors, exposed or concealed, and directly buried if identified for the purpose. Yeah. All right. Let's find out, well, where can you not have it? Well, you can't have it in you can have it still in a cable tray. You can have it in a raceway. So now you could run MC cable in a raceway. Ryan, will you look at armor cable, see if you can run armor cable in a raceway? I can run MC cable in a raceway. Why would you run MC cable in a raceway?
Well, it doesn't say that in 320.10, but I think this was in 05 or 08, there was a big to-do about this in the code. What they ended up doing is in the raceway articles, .22, I think, it says any cable can be in any raceway unless the cable or raceway specifically says you can't do it.
So we don't even need to say that MC cable can be in a raceway, because the raceway rule, and you're going to find that actual rule that says that.
22.
What is it?
.22.
.22 in the raceway rules say you can run cables in a raceway unless the cable says it can't be in a raceway.
Yes.
Okay. Brian, when would I run MC cable in a raceway?
Well, I was just thinking back to the conversation that we had yesterday with the MC cable that was run into the manhole in the raceway. So
but we didn't say you couldn't run the cable in the raceway. We were saying we were having some problems with the mechanical termination.
I understand, but I'm just saying, obviously, there's applications where you're going to run it in a raceway.
Okay. Number 9 has locations, but then you got some limitations on number 9. Number 8 is probably some obscure thing I decided not to cover. Number 10, embedded in plaster, brick. Okay. And 10, use it in wet locations where the metallic covering is impervious to moisture. Okay, see, my mind is thinking initially traditional MC cable. This is saying, hey, no. We're just saying MC cable can be used outdoors, and it can be used direct burial, and it can be in wet locations. But, of course, 110.3b is going to have to install according to listing and label instructions. It's going to have to be suitable for outdoor use. It's going to have to be suitable for a wet location. It's going to have to be suitable for direct burial. So it's a little switch in the language, but it's still appropriate language. Take a look at this. 330.10.11 says that you can run MC cable direct burial, and you can actually put it in a slab. It just has to have corrosive-resistant jacket over the metal sheath. That's a change clarifying it. Here is some MC cable. What kind of location is this?
Damn.
Looks like damp to me.
Under the best conditions, right, this would be a damp location. It's a possibility that this could actually be a wet location. But it won't really matter because if you locate it, well, what does 330 say about using MC cable in a damp location? Or it doesn't, it just says it can be used outdoors.
Let's say there's room for improvement in the code in this article. Maybe that's the way I'll put that.
Okay, Don, maybe you can help that in 14,
Yeah.
17? All right. Yeah, remember I told you I struggle. There's a lack of coordination between numbering systems and uses and not permitted and the different things, but they're okay. Well, we work with them. 330.12, uses not permitted. Let's see if this helps us. Can't be subject to physical damage. Got it. Can't be exposed to destructive corrosive conditions. 300.6. Okay, got that. Let's go to bends. I'm not going to get into the detail of bends. We talked about that detail. This one does. However, the numbers are different. MC cable is a 7-time multiplier, where armor cable was a 5-time multiplier. It'll be a little larger radius. It was, I think, 2.5-inch radius for armor cable. It's 3.5-inch radius for MC cable. And sometimes I get this question, Mike, how come it's 5 times this one? How come it's 7 times that one? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't know. Yeah, but wait. I'm like, I don't care. I don't know. I mean, my brain can only handle, I only have so many molecules, and it's working best. Usually it's actually just 2 molecules in there, and they're working as hard as they possibly can. And they don't get involved in stuff that it doesn't matter. If it says 7 times for MC cable, well, it's 7 times. Now, I guess if I get the raceway, I go 7 times to 3.5. That means I would have what size container that would help me identify the bending radius? It would be what? A 7-inch round, is that right? Structure, and that's how you can tell what it would look like.
Coffee can?
Coffee can maybe, or something like that. But it just gives you an idea. It's a lot larger radius than you might think it's going to be. Let's go into securing and supporting, and let's see how close that is to armor cable. 330.30, securing and supported. Cables must be secured, staples, cable tie straps, hangers, similar fittings. Don't damage the cable. We talked about that. This one is what? This is within 12 inches of termination, and now it's within 6 feet of separation. Mike, armor cable is 12 inches, 4.5 feet. MC cable is 12 inches, 6 feet. Why? I don't know. I don't know. It's what it is, and I don't care. That's what I do within 6 feet. So now there's an advantage to a contractor using MC cable over armor cable. Now we're trying to decide, well, which do I use there? Well, I could have less supports. Okay. Now this support gets a little dicey also. It's not as simple as like within 6 feet. It has to do with the wire size, and because I've seen MC cable that comes in 500 KC mils. Well, I don't know. Ryan, what does it say about 500 KC mils MC cable? If I show a picture of a transformer here, does it give us in 330.30b? Because that 6 foot had to do, wasn't a 6 foot having to do with the termination? Where's that, the wire size?
Oh, right.
Rather, not 6 feet. What's the wire size? What if it's not this size wire? If it's larger than 10 gauge?
No idea what you're talking about.
If the 6 foot limitation has to do not larger than 10 gauge, but what if I'm
yeah.
running 6 gauge wire?
No.
Or does it not say 10 gauge in there?
Yeah, it talks about 10 gauge. Cables containing 4 or less conductors sized no bigger than 10 gauge must be secured within 12 inches of every box, cabinet fitting, or other cable termination. Okay, I misunderstood where you're going. So larger ones, you don't have to secure it next to the box.
But I have to secure it where?
Every 6 feet. Okay,
so if it's 10 gauge and smaller, I have to secure it within 12 inches.
Right.
But if it's larger than 10 gauge, then I don't need the 12 inches. I just need this
Right.
every 6 feet. So we'll probably add a graphic in there, maybe like a transformer where you have 500 KC mils. Victor.
in what you were getting at with the increased increment, a new code change this year said that if the ungrounded conductors are 250 kc mil or larger, that span can be 10 feet.
Yeah,
And that's where I was leading
Okay.
into. What if
Okay.
it's not this size wire?
Right.
Oh, well, then we have some different rules. Because, see, many of us are thinking MC cable is the branch circuit MC cable, secure within 12 inches and in every 6 feet. Great, great, great. But what if it's not that little cable, but you're running 500 kc mils? Right. Oh, well, then we have a different set of circumstances. And that's what we're looking to do. So just be aware that MC cable, armor cable, is not as used as much as it was in the past. Mostly a branch circuit system, sometimes feeders, but mostly branch circuit. MC cable, I'm sure does the code talk about the largest size MC cable in the code, or is that just not something that's covered in the code? That would be a UL standard. That'd be something to go on the internet. And maybe somebody can search real quick on the internet. MC cable is manufactured in sizes between blank and blank. And I'm sure as we go along in this DVD, one of the streamers will be able to look that up and give it to us. All right, so we're moving on. Horizontal, we talked about this. I don't care what wire method you run horizontally, as long as you meet the support requirements that's required by that article, well, then it's automatically considered support. Armor cable is 4.5 feet. MC cable is what? 6 feet. Well, then more than likely you're going to support it. I mean, there'll be a structure in that kind of dimension, you'll be fine. What about if you run MC cable in the ceiling, suspended ceilings, and above suspended ceilings? Well, this would be another example where I would have two graphics. What this rule says is that you have a maximum 6 feet unsupported above a suspended ceiling, the luminaires and equipment, and the termination fitting itself is considered the last point of support. If this cable, however, went along, let's say this bar joist, I'd have to secure it within 12 inches. Then I'd have to secure it within 6 feet. And from that last point of support, I could then wrap down here, and I can go 6 feet unsupported. Now, 330.40, which is a .40, which is a fittings rule, it says that cable fittings must be listed and identified for use for MC cable. We talked about this when we were in the armor cable in 320.40. Brian, did you want to tell us something about this?
Yeah, well, I mean, take Arlington fittings, for instance. We've been talking about Arlington a lot, but their fittings are all rated for flex, AC, MC, and some of them even have a listing for NM also, all in the same exact fitting. So the manufacturers have definitely seen the need to have multiple listings for a single fitting.
Well, you know, what's happening is that as wire methods started popping up, then they would make fittings and getting a standard. Is that right? And as 100 years go by, we got all these different wire methods, all these different fittings, and the supply house are carrying more and more and more and more product. And, of course, now they're being competitive, and you got the big box stores, and they're putting pressure to consolidate things. And so it kind of like we went all the way out, and now we kind of come back again. And some manufacturers are like, okay, what are the different standards? Maybe I can get a fitting that can meet this one and this one and this one and this one and this one. Mark that. So now I'll go to a supply house and say, look, just use ours, right? And then you can save all those other boxes in there. So it looks like we have to be careful, make sure they find the fitting. Thanks for going on the internet and getting that information.
No problem.
Now, the color coding on the outside of the cable, that is proprietary, not by Southwire. I think that's Armor Flexible Cable Company up in Providence, Rhode Island. They secure the patent on identifying the outside cables. So that's why you say, well, how come some cables have markings and some cables on the outside don't? And that marking, if they have a directory in there and they say, you know, it's black, red, blue, so you know what the wires are in there, you know, that kind of stuff. So, and same thing with NM cables we were talking about. Let's talk about color coding and NM cable when we get into that part of the code also. Fittings. The NEC, yes, Ryan?
If you can go back to that photograph, you know, one of the applications that I think this is a really useful product for is we talked on the second DVD in 210.5. If I have multiple voltage systems, I have to mark my conductors by phase. So I can get this stuff in the 12-2 in the yellow and gray variety. And I can get it in the black and white variety, and I can get it in the brown and gray variety, or I can get it in the brown, orange, yellow, gray variety. They make it, you can get it, and I think it's out of sight. But remember that rule in 210.5. This is one way to really accommodate it well.
I'm not quite sure where this would work that, only because this is identifying the raceway, not inside the panel.
Oh, no, I understand, but that's the colors that you can get, and you can get it in.
Oh, you're saying
You can get 12-2 in not only black and white, you can get it in blue and white.
You're saying
get it in red and white.
when you have that requirement of identification of the conductors,
Right.
this right here will help you know that guess what? The colors of those wires inside this cable is a color coating that maybe you can meet that requirement.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I understand. Now, the NEC does not require anti-short bushings at the terminations of type NMC cable. Now, this is a NEMO report that was done in August 14, 2002. Use of anti-short bushings for terminating type MC cable. If you want this report, type in your Google search, where you search, use of anti-short bushings for terminating type MC cable. Boom. PDF will pop up. You can print it up, give it to the inspector. And actually, it's a little further than it, but it talks about this is the code panel. Anti-short bushings are not required for type MC cable in accordance with the listings for the product. The termination fittings approved for use with MC cable are designed such that the wires will not come in contact with the cut edge of the armor. The throat of the fitting is small enough to prevent contact with the armor. Type MC termination fittings perform the same function as type MC cable as type AC terminations plus the anti-short bushings do for type AC cable. So when you get to MC cable, there is no anti-short bushing required. Well, then why did they give you the anti-short bushings with the MC cable? Because the MC cable guys, the manufacturers, get hit up because the inspectors say, well, where's your anti-short bushings? You're like, I don't need them. Yes, you have to have that. And so now the guy calls the supply house, listen, man, I need anti-short bushings, because the inspector's requirement. So it works its way all the way up to the manufacturer. So they're like, you know what, let's just include anti-short bushings with MC cable and with armor cable. Yes, Brian?
Well, it's funny. This has been quite the controversy, and believe it or not now, we're actually seeing the anti-short bushings not being included and sold separately at some of the supply houses. So I think maybe this is finally starting to work its way out into practical field application.
You're saying the industry is pushing back, say, hold on. I'm not going to be including anti-short bushings in a wiring method that I don't have to have. And if the guy wants to buy anti-short bushings to put it on there because he doesn't know the code or the inspector's requiring him, we're going to charge you for those.
That's
We're
right.
not going to be giving those away anymore.
That's right.
That's what I would do as a business. Why should I be incurring a cost? Because you know what happens is this. I'm being the good guy, right? I'm including the anti-short bushings with the MC cable. My competitor is not.
Yep.
He's a little cheaper than me. And now I'm trying to be the good guy doing something I don't have to do, but he's not. He's doing what he has to do, and so you can see how the market goes inside here.
Well, let's take it on our side of the business. I mean, I'm paying my guys to put in anti-short bushings that I don't need to. I know it might sound trivial, but when you're in a big commercial project and you're putting in thousands of MC cable connectors, imagine the amount of labor you can start saving if you're not putting in the anti-short bushings.
Sometimes I can be, oftentimes I can be arrogant, but I would look at it this way. If you came out as an inspector and you want me to put anti-short bushings in, I'm like, no problem. You pay for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Why would I pay for it? It's not my idea. But if you want to be designing the code, you want to design my job and you want to kind of become part of my supervising team, you know what I mean? And this is something you want, or engineer you want it, not a problem. I'm not paying for it just because you think it's a good idea, but it is my responsibility to educate you. I would get the NEMA report. I would give you that information. Now, I understand it's a matter of how far. There's an art in dealing with the inspector. If you are screwing up so bad on the job, you're thinking, I don't want to upset him because he'll find everything else I've done wrong. That's a business model. I mean, I can appreciate that. If you're like me, you're like, I'll die on every single hill. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. And it's not a good practice, but that's just the way I am. But I expect if you're an inspector coming to my job, yeah, you're looking for every single code rule I've done wrong. Because if I'm going to fight you on something, which is fair, but it works the other way around, then you better be making sure that you're doing it right, and if you're wrong, then you're going to fix that. So this is not like you can pick and choose. So I understand how it goes. So back to the anti-short bushings. Not required for MC cable. Ryan, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to mention, as an inspector myself, I have called things unintentionally that were incorrect. And I've had guys say, hey, that receptacle up in the attic does not need to be GFCI. And I looked through the code, and he was right. And I said, you know what, thank you. I'm not going to make the same mistake for the next 10 years, screwing up, asking for something that's not in the code. So, talk to the inspector, and I don't go into it thinking that you're committing suicide here by talking to them. There's always a way to talk to people. So, talk to the inspector. Don't be listening to what Mike's saying and say, no way I'm doing that. No, some inspectors want to be told. if they're wrong.
The thing is this, we're
Some,
all
not all.
growing, we're all learning. I mean, nobody has all the answers, and we're still learning inside here. 2 points before I get done with MC cable. Victor, tell me about, you did some internet searching about the sizing of MC cable, and what did you find out?
One manufacturer said that they listed copper up to 750 and aluminum up to 900.
Well, then
KC
you don't
mill.
secure it within 12 inches of termination.
Yeah,
Right?
it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. So that was my point size. All right, let's go over here. 330.108, let me just tell you a story. I did a friend of mine's house, wired a friend of mine's warehouse. So I went out there to help him out and hook it all up. And I could not get a GFCI to stay on. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I wired the whole thing in MC cable. Of course, I broke the MC cable. I took my decks, I cut it in there. I used MC cable fittings, did not put anti-share bushings inside here because I'm doing it all code compliant except maybe breaking the cable and cutting it. You know what happened? The edge of the MC cable touched and cut the neutral wire. So it just touched the neutral conductor. And when you have GFCI protection devices with no load on at all, it looks for what? A neutral to the equipment grounding conductor connection. And so there's an example that why you want to use the proper tool to be cutting MC cable using the proper termination fittings. All right, let's finish up about equipment grounding conductors on MC cable. Traditional interlock MC cable, the armor is not an equipment grounding conductor, so therefore it will have an internal equipment grounding conductor. Southwire came out with MC all-purpose cable, and they have it wrapped with a mylar wrap around the conductors, and they use a 10 gauge for a 12 gauge circuit conductor, and the 10 gauge bonds all the convolutions. Now, let's see, Southwire. Another manufacturer came out. Now, Southwire thought they had the patent on this all-purpose cable. Another manufacturer came out with a similar wiring method, and I think there's, like I said, there's a lawsuit between Southwire maybe and some other manufacturer, but the other manufacturer did was this, and if you get a chance, you look at the MC cable and you'll see this. Southwire has a mylar wrap on that, and the other manufacturer has the conductors themselves, some kind of protective coating, part of, it's almost like THHN kind of a concept, but it's not THHN, but they put some kind of thing on the conductor. They did not use the mylar, and the argument is like, well, we didn't violate your patent because your patent showed mylar. We provided that protection through another means. But my point is this, it's a new wiring method. Now, when would you use MC cable versus armor cable? Well, one, it has to do with cost. Oftentimes, sometimes you can't use armor cable in certain applications where you can MC. Well, then there you go. I mean, direct burial in a wet location, MC cable can, if you get the right type of wiring method, it's listed for that application. Right there's one. But if I'm in a hospital, well, in a hospital now, hospital or healthcare facilities require the armor sheath of the cable to be listed as an equipment grounding conductor. Armor cable has it done. That's 517.13a. Only recently in the last few years, maybe 10 years or so, has MC cable had the outer sheath listed as an equipment grounding conductor when it's of the interlock type. So now MC all-purpose cable or the other derivative that's like that now meets 517.13a requirements, but then 517.13b requires an equipment grounding conductor. Well, MC cable could have an equipment grounding conductor, and so could armor cable. So now you can have both these wiring methods be competitive and be the same. So then it becomes a cost issue. If I run armor cable with an equipment grounding conductor using an 18 gauge aluminum bonding strip, what is the cost of that versus MC all-purpose cable, which has a copper equipment grounding conductor with a 10 gauge aluminum bonding strip? What is the cost of that? And I don't know what the differences in the costs are. However, MC cable seems to be picking up a huge percentage of the market share. Armor cable is picking up a less percentage of the market share. Supply house is the same way. But you got two wire methods that's going to achieve the same result. Why are we carrying two wire methods? We only want to carry one. So that being the case, which wire method could you use in more applications? It would be MC cable. So therefore, you have the economy of scale start kicking inside there. So it looks like it's a choice. If I was a contractor, I would price out armor cable for a given application. I'd price out MC cable for a given application. I would then learn the pricing and how it works out, and then I make the call. So either one of those two wire methods would be fine.